It's episode number 96, Revenge of the Cybermen.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, Toby?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Because the polarity of the neutron flows with the TARDIS will be free of the force field.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine, Stephen. It's like a person, you see.
The resulting reaction is Friday. Are you ready?
Welcome back to the old Doctor Who show, your tri-weekly classic Doctor Who review podcast. We are here on a Sunday, fun day, Father's Day. Hey, fathers. Hey, Daddy Day. Daddy Day is a weird way of putting Father's Day, and I wish I hadn't done that, but I would like you all to meet my son, Nestor. Nestor.
Thank you for making that joke.
Inside baseball for
I've
fans
been sitting here waiting to make that joke, but you did it for me.
Crappy U.S. politics. So,
Hey,
Dan,
Daddy.
no, of course, this is Dan. I mean, I'm not Dan, but I am Eric. This is Dan.
I'm
Hello,
Dan.
Dan.
That's Nestor, my dad. American politics is crazy right now, folks.
But it
Hi,
wouldn't be that.
everybody.
It would be as if I literally just told Dan that I had a son named Nestor, and he popped up, and he was 19, and he had been living with me for
But you
6
didn't
years.
tell anyone about it.
No one knows. It's not on any bio. It's never been mentioned. All of his major life things, he is not a part of it, but he is a part
Also,
of it.
there's
just
no
to win
paperwork for it, and
Nope.
he has a real family.
just to win an argument. Literally that far, just to not look racist. Why didn't you
But-
tell us about your son? Because I didn't want to expose him to politics. So here he is on Tucker Carlson. But anyway, let's not talk about that crap. because
That's all I
there's-
want to talk
There's
about.
more important things to talk about. Like Doctor Who, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any...
Is that what we're going to do? We're
I don't
actually
know.
going to
Yeah,
talk
I don't know.
about
Oh, you know what? I have a couple of things that I just want to hit up first because I don't know what happened to you in your 3 weeks, but I have children, real children, not Nestor children, that I have raised, and the whole time from the beginning to
This
now.
moment.
Yep. And so my oldest child graduated from her middle school. For those that are updating their map at home of my life map. And one of the speakers at her graduation, I have heard via her, perhaps is a listener of this podcast, which in and of itself is strange a little bit. Like, I feel like there should be a support group for children whose parents have podcasts, because that's like a whole other thing. Like, could you imagine, like, it was like maybe you'd hang out with your dad once in a while, you're hoping for that catch in the cornfield from your dad that never comes, and then our poor children have to deal with their dad talking about a children's show from the 70s. But anyway, I have heard, I don't know if he still listens, but I will say to Justin, I hope I didn't give out too much for your name. I thought your speech was excellent. I think it was very funny, and I think you're actually funnier than the school has a right to have you as that. That doesn't make any sense. But you're better
You're
than
better than them.
You're better
Than
than
they
them.
deserve.
You're it's a level of
more.
humor that is beyond, I think, what most people would find. And I hope you find your way out of this miserable town that sucks. But anyway, you did a great job, so hats off to you, Justin. If he's already unsubscribed and he hasn't listened,
Let him know.
It's fine.
Let him know,
yeah,
folks.
Let him know. Hunt
Find
down
him.
that child and then just start shaking him. That podcast mentioned you. But I was very entertained enough that I wanted to just give you some props.
Do you just want to do his entire routine here?
Yeah, let's reenact. Yeah. So, Dan, while I was watching virtual graduations, what were you doing these 3
Oh,
weeks?
I was also watching virtual graduations from across the country.
For another reason.
I'm just so bored and lonely. I don't know. What have I been doing the past few weeks? I don't know, man. these times, what can I say?
Right.
There's nothing to say.
America's hottest middle school graduations.
No, at all.
No, yeah, of course, it's going to always go in that weird place.
You
When
need to
I just want it to go in
every
the
second of this.
I want the absurd place.
Okay, we're going to start over. 3, 2, 1.
Clap.
Anyway.
All right, so let's. Unless you have anything else, we can just jump into Doctor Who: Revenge of the Cybermen.
I would like to do that.
Okay, so let's hit the button. Pretend that last 10 minutes did not happen or happened differently. That's almost always my thought at the end of these podcasts was, hey, I just wish that kind of happened differently. Not that it didn't happen, which I think is a positive. That's a positive growth.
Right.
That's
You're
something
really
I
making
can tell my
improvements
therapist.
there.
But I'm glad it happened. I just wish it happened differently.
Not like that.
Right.
Where the
Show
hell's
me.
that button?
Yeah, okay. I was going to say something even more inappropriate.
Is it a Mr. Show sketch?
It could have been. It could have been. All right, so let's hit the button and get us out of this before it's too late. Boop. Doo-doo. Woo-doo.
I'll give the people my reasons. I wanted to free them from this tyranny of dark, dripping rock.
Living the way we had for generations, at least we were safe, Boris. Safe from the genocidal threat of the Cybermen.
I had a dream.
A folly conceived out of arrogance through overweening ambition.
We could have traded with other worlds, exchanged our gold for armaments. We could have been strong enough to defend ourselves against Cybermen or any other attackers.
Counselor, we are beaten. Our people withdraw, refusing to attack the Cybermen again.
Order them back! Command them!
I'm sorry, Counselor. We need time to regroup.
There is no time.
Come, I will speak to them.
Okay, so this is Dan. This is Doctor Who: Revenge of the Cybermen. They're going to get back at you. This is a story.
But are they, though?
Yeah. Oh, they're there. Yeah, that's their
Are they?
plan.
No,
This
well, it's a
is
plan,
the
sure.
fifth and final serial of season number 12. Lucky number 12. Tom Baker's first season ends with a story about the Cybermen. It's from 1975. It's directed by Michael Bryant and written by Jerry Davis, although I saw it was also worked on by my favorite, one of my favorite classic Doctor Who writers, Robert Holmes. When you see Robert Holmes' name on something, it's gonna be good. The Doctor and Sarah Jane and Harry, a Doctor who I had forgotten about, and then when I saw him, I was like, "Oh, of course, Harry! Of course, Harry!"
But then you're like, but why Harry? Anyway, keep going.
Okay, yeah. Then we can talk about that as it goes. End up involved. They end up. I can't remember. Basically, but they end
Folks,
up
I'm gonna
back
let you
at
know a
the
little
Ark in
secret here.
space.
Eric didn't write this one down.
I did not write this one down. But the entire first season of Tom Baker, if you remember, cast back your minds. We started on the second episode, I think, or the second story of the first season. The first one was a robot, and I think the second one was Ark in space. We ended up on an Ark in space, and then the Doctor and Sarah and Harry ended up on a whole adventure that finally brings them back to the Ark in space, although we are now earlier in time, before it was an Ark in space, when it was simply a
beacon in space.
Beacon that looks that it is around an asteroid, a newly discovered asteroid, so it's going to keep the freighters and spaceships from hitting it. So, but there's been a plague again. Lots of plague talks, very topical.
It is.
There is a plague that is killing everyone. There's very few people left, but they're not really telling people that there's a plague yet. It's kind of hush hush, secret. And it turns out that it's not a plague. It is a
Wait, what is it?
It's a secret Cybermen invasion, which has to do with multiple levels of backstabbing, which involves a gold dust people, which is actually where Fleetwood Mac got that song. A lot of people don't understand Gold Dust Woman originated from the planet of gold.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so the planet of Stevie Nicks, which is also something that we should have had, because I imagine it would be a planet of Stevie Nicks, and then everyone has their own bird. Like everyone would have like a hawk or like, you know what I mean? Like you're familiar,
Yeah.
but it's just like that's their whole
Right.
thing. And
Lots of
so
scarves.
Planet of Stevie Nicks, Gold Dust Woman Planet, and there's a Proto Turlo who is like what they were like. This guy sucks.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
make a younger version of him. So he is
Younger
involved.
alien
I don't know.
version.
I did not, obviously, Dan's right. I did not write this down or give
top
it
of his
much
head.
thought. And now I'm just sort of rambling through the plot. So you get it. You get it. You know what this
You guys
story
watched
is
it.
about.
You've seen this.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be at this point. So, Dan, what did you think of Revenge of the Cybermen?
I enjoyed the story. Full stop.
Oh.
End of review.
Okay. All right.
Moving
Fair
on.
enough. Fair enough. I also enjoyed the story.
Okay.
Very, very much. Very
So,
much.
what are we doing in 3 weeks? 3 weeks we are doing.
Yeah, what's our next story?
I really enjoy. So, as you, dear listeners, have been following along, we've been jumping around through time and space, visiting various doctors and alternating between them now as we're going back through the list of serials. And it's great to be back with Tom Baker. It's especially great to be back with Tom Baker and Sarah Jane together. Still one of my top pairings ever. And then there's also Harry. So that's fun. It's a kind of a bonkers episode in the way that it begins. Like it just because we're not watching things in order, but we have seen the previous stories that lead up to this. I had no idea what was going on when they first started, and they're just kind of floating around in space. I guess we can jump into the story, but my overall sense is it's a lot of fun. I like the characters. I like the double crosses. The setting, again, being back on what will become the Ark, but the beacon setting, that looks great. The underground caverns and shooting on location there looked awesome. The story was a lot of fun. So, and the alien race with their politics, it wasn't too much. Sometimes I feel like those stories can get a little bit too heavy on like the internecine politics within a particular story, but there was just enough to be like, there's where the tension is. That was very interesting. And you had Cybermen, so it was fun. Eric, give me your 30-second download on what you think of this one.
Oh, Dan, I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know why I thought it wasn't going to be good or not as great as it was. I think maybe some listeners may have tipped their hat a little bit early that this had not been a good story. I love this story. I will say also, I must have seen this story as a kid. Because I remembered a good deal of it, especially when we went to that gold planet. And I saw those people. I'm like, I know them from... But I couldn't remember it very well, so I assume this is probably something the last time I saw was 8. But I loved it. I thought it was really entertaining, and there's something about Tom Baker, and you can say it's nostalgia, because of course you're remembering when you were young, but there's something about that title sequence and his delivery and Sarah Jane, and it just puts me in a really good mood and place, and I just enjoyed it from start to finish. You mentioned a little bit about the jumping around, so as soon as the story started, I was like, oh yeah, the Ark, I forgot about the Ark, and then it took me a little bit of time in my own head to figure out, okay, before this was one of my favorite Doctor Who stories of all time, which is Genesis of the Daleks. Happened right before this one, and so I spent a little bit of time while it's playing, like I had to stop it and like try to remember, like, okay, and I don't quite recall why they got sent from Ark in space to here. I think they had used a transmat beam, and the transmat beam broke or something, and then they got sent to Santaran experiment. I think happens right after Ark in space, which was like that 2-parter with the Santarans.
Yes.
And then after that, there may have been an episode in between that and Genesis. Anyway, it didn't matter. It's a little confusing to understand the whole deal that they're in the past, but they're on the Ark, what becomes the Ark, but the TARDIS is ahead of them in the future and is set to materialize there. But the TARDIS is anchored to the ship. Even because the ship is moving in space, even so much at the end, they are about to go into the planet, and they have to like do that pull-up move, which was very exciting. I have some issues. My only issues with the story was the end, and we can get into that.
Yes.
But then also the TARDIS appears, so it's like, I guess it's not a point in time and space that it's going to. It's going to the Ark. Because wherever the Ark goes, it's going to appear. It's not anywhere near. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. That
Right. It wasn't in that exact.
No, it's like locked onto it.
coordinates.
And they even say like they redid the walls, or they said something like, "In the future, this is now a door to the kitchen, and we could really open up this place with whatever." I thought it was fun. I thought the acting was great. I loved the gold dust people, even though some of the masks or whatever were a little wonky, but I liked the infighting within them. I liked the different levels. It reminded me a lot of Planet of the Apes, where you have like the different species in that. They look different. Like there was the general guy who was like, "I'm gonna free the people, and we're stuck here, and we should be trading our gold," versus like the elders, and they're sort of whatever. I don't know. I don't remember the guy's name. Do you remember the guy's name?
No.
Doesn't matter. I liked all of that stuff.
Boris
I thought that was very interesting. I thought the stuff that was happening on the beacon was very interesting. And everything that the doctor said was just funny. There were so many dead mannequins. As far as the eye could see. So, like,
that was ridiculous.
When you see like the dead bodies everywhere, they're clearly mannequins, and occasionally a real person in the front of the frame.
When they had to do a close-up.
Yeah, you had to do a close-up. I was like, look at all these dead mannequins.
I honestly, at first... So, the story starts off with Harry, Sarah Jane, and the doctor spinning around in space, doing like skydive maneuvers.
Yes.
And then they materialize someplace. You don't know where it is yet. And I don't know what's happening. I thought, was this like the Leisure Hive? They're just out there in space doing what's a relaxation, like at a spa thing? And one of the activities that day is spinning around to the vacuum of space.
And that's why I wanted to watch, and I probably should have, the very end of Revenge or
you can
Genesis of the
never
Daleks.
go back.
I know, I didn't go
never go back.
Because I was
Only
like,
forward.
why are they floating? Like, it was such a weird moment. It opens up with like, what? And then I was like, I'm so dialed into this show at this point because this is how it it started.
It was a great way to start it. And then there's the time ring that was the thing that allowed them to do that. And the little trick, the gag, Harry, whatever his name is. Harry goes to grab it and it disappears. Anyway, that was kind of cool. So then they immediately, find a dead body, slumped over, go through in the corridor, and there's mannequins everywhere. And at this point, because things are so bonkers at this moment, I don't know if they are mannequins. Like in the story, if they're mannequins, I'm like, did everyone get petrified? No, it was so obviously bad, and at the same time, the story was starting off so strange, I couldn't tell what I was supposed to be believing.
Right, and it was definitely I felt like it was on the cheap kind of, although there was a lot of different locations, so I shouldn't say that, because the whole Gold Planet was very fantastic. It stands
out because the rest of it was so good on the whole. I mean, yes.
But it's like the Ark stuff. It's like, oh, we're just going to use the Ark in space set.
Right.
And
we have it here.
They could shoot them back to back, or I don't know if they did that. But when you brought up the time ring, then I remembered, okay, I think they, at the end of Ark in Space, it was like a broken transmat. Then they get sent down to the Centaurans. And then they end up with the Genesis of the Dalek thing. And they get the time ring from the Daleks, right? And that's what he uses to try to get them back, and it just it miscalculates, and he's too early in time. But that was so good, and I liked the old woman that gets killed on the planet, the hidden planet.
Yep.
Although, why the Cybermen are afraid of gold, right? So we know this. So they're out for revenge, hence the title. To destroy this planet because it has a lot of gold. Sure, there's gold other places, but this means something. And I think we missed the episode or the story where they had fought this planet before, right? Because they mentioned this war, like we had fought them, and then we're pretending we're dead because of the Cybermen. And this is where
I don't know if there is necessarily an actual filmed TV story about it.
But they have history.
I think this is in the... Right. There's a history.
There's a history there. But for some reason, all the way at the end, when the Cybermen are invading the gold planet, they're not using gold dust against the Cybermen. They're just getting wiped out. It looks like they're just using regular laser guns. I'm like, come on,
yeah.
dudes, just use the freaking gold. You got gold. Your whole planet is gold.
To the point where Harry and Sarah Jane were shackled in gold.
In gold.
Shackles. Everything
was kind of malleable. They talked about
cars were made of gold. Everything's made of gold. Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't just use gold weapons. And I don't, on the other side, don't know why, if Cybermen know that this is the thing that they are susceptible to, upgrade. I don't know.
Yeah,
put an air
you
filter
can figure
in
out
there.
that upgrade. It feels like they could get around this whole gold thing.
Yeah.
But what started this sort of rambling session of mine was the old woman gets killed. She's killed by one of those silverfish cyber slug things, right? In the beginning, or
No.
she was killed by
shot.
one of.
She was shot by
their own people.
Yes.
That murder it happens, but then it doesn't have a lot of weight to the story. I mean, it starts with their political thing, but
we don't know at that time. When we see it
No.
happen, we don't have an idea who it is, who killed her, why she was calling, what she was worried about, that there were any factions going on. And then they kind of wrap that up and like, we got to bury this body, and she was just scared about your plan. Like,
Right.
okay,
So-
it was
so
an introduction. It was just a weird way to, I say this a lot, but so many of these stories, almost every story practically, the stakes are always people dying, and there's just a lot of people dying always. And this story has a lot of them. I mean,
a lot of
people
head
on both
trauma
sides
again. We're right on people getting hit with rocks.
You get people getting hit with rocks.
that
You get
rock
people
avalanche.
blowing themselves up. You get people getting shot at. It's just a huge body count. Plus, not to mention the quote unquote plague that killed all the people on the beacon too. It's just
Right. And speaking of the beacon,
that wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
But.
Speaking of the beacon, in the beginning, when eventually the doctor and Sarah Jane and Harry meet the two remaining people on the beacon, there's three. There's the Proto Turlo. When those two guys run down the hallway, I've never seen anyone hold a gun the way they do. It's almost like purses. Like they're holding purses and they're shooting their sonic vibrators, but it's like a weird. It's like a weird way of running. Didn't the running seem odd to you? Like they
There
never.
were so many things that were odd.
They never held a gun before. It was just very strange.
Well, I mean, it is, to be fair, in our future, and that's just how people hold guns in the future.
Right. And then I have the Cybermen comm device looks like a big ass Odyssey 2. Now I don't remember. I wrote that down, but I don't remember the Cybermen comm device at this point. Was there something
this
that
is what
looked like an
Proto-Turlo.
Odyssey 2?
Yeah, I think the Proto Turlo.
Yes, you're right. Yes,
He had
yes.
his James Bond spy gadgets,
Which is the biggest thing you've ever seen in
wait.
your life, and he keeps it
Yes.
in the drawer.
But so he keeps this big ass thing with all of its wires in the bottom drawer because no one will ever look there.
Right.
But then he also has like a hairbrush that has a secret compartment in it.
Yes.
So why have some things that are like James Bond spy devices, and then a big drawer marked "Do not look," nothing in here.
Right? Why not just
everything
like and because none of this stuff works anyway. So why not just have the little
Make it-
thing is all you
Right.
need? Why did they add that second like giant?
Didn't need
Odyssey
it, but it did
2.
look like it did look like
Unless it was a
Odyssey 2.
tie-in, could have been a tie-in to sell. Some
Yeah,
Odyssey.
right. It was all about selling Odyssey systems.
I love when Sarah Jane gets sort of wrapped up in that space documentary. Like they're watching.
She was really
all of a sudden,
into it.
right before. I think it's the cliffhanger of the first episode where the silver thing is about to attack her.
Yes.
But she's like, she like catches it out of the corner, and she's like, "Oh, what is it?" And then all of a sudden, she's sitting down, and she's on episode 6.
Hours have gone
before
by.
she realizes what's happened.
She's watching it. Yeah, and they kept playing. You could hear clips of what they were talking about. It was the most boring thing in the world, and she was just fascinated. I don't know. She's getting tired of being stuck on a.
I just love this show so much, and I love when the silverfish. What are those things called? They're mites or
Cybermat.
something. Cybermat. When the cybermat is running around, so it kills. So we start this. I guess we should start at the beginning. Sure. We start the story where we're on the Ark in Space, which is now
A beacon.
Beacon. I can't remember Beacon.
Cool.
There are at least 2 guys that are sort of in charge of the thing. There is a comm person who's running. He's
Well, there's
sort of,
3. There's 3 guys.
there's
at first,
the
and then
2
there's
good guys.
then
There's the comm person, and then there's the civilian.
Yes, there's
Right?
three crew members.
Yeah, 3 crew
and then
members.
the
Like
double
the
agent.
leader, his second in command, this
Do we want to keep
comm
saying
guy.
this? We can keep. Do you want to keep on this for a while?
Yeah,
How
I
many
want to talk
people
about
are
this. And then also the rich Turlo guy. So
Yes.
the comm guy is talking to freighters and letting them know that stay away. We've got some kind of virus or whatever. But the reason why they can't leave or evacuate is because of this asteroid. Now, can't they just give the coordinates to someone else and leave and just save the people? They gotta
what
stay
Earth
here.
Central Command said. Nope, they gotta stay there. They're not supposed to tell anyone, and they're not allowed to leave.
It just seems like
It seems like a lot for yeah. You could just put up a couple pylons around it, and people
unless it's like an alien secret corporation, they're aware of the gold, and then they're actually, and then the real ship's going to come and mine the crap out of the gold planet after the Doctor leaves. Possible. I'm not sure it's saying that's happening, but it could be like their secret directive for this. Okay. So why did they even bring this up? I don't remember why I even brought it up.
Oh, so
other
they're
than
there.
To say,
right.
Oh, the Cybermats.
Yes.
So when the Doctor finds this guy and he's like, he's almost
Puncture
dead.
wounds.
Maybe we could save him. We can't save him. So there's like a little bit of hope for him, but he's going to die. And then the Doctor just sprinkles some dust on him. That was my favorite part, where the thing died. He kills him with like some powder. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Maybe it's gold dust. They don't say it's gold dust at
No,
that
I don't
point,
think
but
so.
I guess
Not
the
at that
Doctor's got gold stuff in his pockets. We see a half-chewed apple at one point.
And the jelly babies.
Yeah, some
And
jelly
yo-yo.
babies. That was funny. But I was just wondering, like, what is the powder? But it takes him out, and he's just like throwing powder. It reminds me of that Dave Chappelle stand-up where he's talking about sprinkling crack on people when the police are arresting them. Just sprinkle some crack on him. So he sprinkled some crack on that Cyberman.
And he was out. Yeah. I liked the effect of the glowing like veins that were going over the people's faces.
Yes, that was cool.
That looked really good. That
was
looked
very
surprisingly good in the way that it worked out. Yeah, so the Doctor immediately realizes it's not a plague. These people are getting... Something's happening to them again, but it seems pretty much right away that he knows that it's Cybermen.
Yeah, and in this story too, or the timeline of Doctor Who, the Cybermen should be defeated.
Everyone
right?
thinks they're
and everybody
completely
knows
destroyed.
about them. So like even the crew, when the Cybermen come up, I think the Doctor's like, it's Cybermen, and he's like, no, the Cybermen have been wiped out. So there must have been a big
even ages ago
thing
though,
that
it's
happened.
like they think it's like it's so ancient history that's almost mythology at this point, but yeah,
Yes.
they think they've been completely wiped out.
And what is the this is a question, a general question,
Sure.
because I know in the newer Who stories the Cybermen are made from organic parts that are converted into, and I think that's a new invention of New Who.
Is
So-
it?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
I don't
So
know
like
either.
are these Cybermen just built from parts and they're completely non-organic?
It is interesting. I was kind of wondering a similar
is it an
thing.
AI
The
or like,
cyber
what
leader,
is it?
which is, I guess this is the first story where the term cyber leader is used, but
Is that the black hat fella?
yeah, the black hat guy. He keeps making reference to how they're superior to animals, to animal beings, whatever. So it kind of did make me think, like, oh, are they entirely cyber? I guess inorganic robots. But I mean, this is the thing. I said, I think even the last story that we talked about with the Daleks, that there's, very much the same thing. Daleks take over organic matter and turn them into machines in order to be a supreme race. Cybermen, at least in New Who, take over organic matter to create machine race and take over everything. Anyway, I don't know. That's a really great question. And if we did our research, we could
It's
probably
fine.
figure that out.
It's fine.
But we're not going to.
It's all fine.
We're not going to. That's our promise to you.
Tom Baker has a great reading of the line "sabotage," which I thought was very good. Which I can't remember how he read it. I just wrote.
I want to go back.
I love how
Speaking of-
Baker says "sabotage," and then
how Tom Baker says everything when they're
he's so
they
good.
first land in the aft section of the beacon, and they're trying to make their way to the front because I think maybe the TARDIS is going to appear in the control room in the front, and it's locked. So he is using a sonic device in order to open the door, and he has to reach his arm through the bulkhead to get to the controls, and he says, stop the door so it doesn't take my arm off.
yeah.
I don't want to lose my arm. I'm rather attached
attached
to
to
it,
it.
which is funny. And then there's a tag on it. It's quite handy.
Yeah.
There's a tag. Like, that's funny. And his delivery, no one can.
Yeah, and it's like,
that.
and I don't know how much is ad-libbed, if any, or how much is from the script, but he always has the best quips and the best delivery of those things. It's always absurd. He never comes across as a jerk.
They're just such throwaway, and they're so good.
And him and Sarah Jane are so good together.
Yeah.
Like that scene when so Sarah goes back. This is all the way to the end. We're just
all
gonna
the
go
end.
all the way.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
She goes back to try to save him and not realizing he's not on there. And then he goes back to save her, and she just grabs him and says, like, I missed you or something. Right?
Did you?
She said, what?
Yes.
She does,
says,
right?
Did you?
And then, yeah. And then, but they have this nice moment, and there's like such a perfect chemistry between them that is not romantic.
Nope.
It is like pure
respect and friendship.
Friendship. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's really like just so well done. And you talked about Harry. I don't not like Harry.
But why do they not like Harry?
They're mean to Harry.
They're so mean
what's
to
the,
him.
What the Tom Baker screams like Harry is an imbecile or something at one point because he causes the. Oh, let's talk about the avalanche.
Okay,
the avalanche makes no real sense, right? So Proto Turlo and Harry are coming down, an incline where they hit a bunch of.
They're going
rubble.
into the center of the planetoid.
The Doctor is coming up that same thing and it's at the other side of the rocks.
Sure.
They start moving the rocks, which creates an avalanche. Which gravity should bring all of the rocks down to Tom Baker.
Maybe.
However, the rocks shoot upward, killing Proto Turlo.
There may have been a quite extensive amount of rocks falling. Maybe not just been one.
But
it might have been a whole...
How are the rocks rolling uphill?
The rocks thought Proto Turlo was a dick. So we're going to take him out.
That was the only... It was like, okay, I guess there was a way to get rid of him. And they do a lot. A lot of people just die. The second... I should have wrote anybody's name down, and I didn't. The second in command guy that works at the... Beacon, he suicides himself. He commits suicide in a grand act of selflessness. I don't know if he needed to, but he did because we're up against Cybermen. Harry and the Doctor try to overcome them with their gold dust. It goes terribly wrong.
Doesn't go well because they just had hands full of dust.
They didn't have much of a plan. And then they're like, nope. And then the guy just jumps off and pulls his bolt off and blows up.
I mean, as soon as you saw the look on his face, you knew what he was going to do, and it does lead towards the New Who, especially 12th Doctor sort of era of like, here's all the deaths, not just deaths that the Doctor has caused, but the deaths that you've inspired other people to do. Like this guy committed suicide, and that becomes a theme later that all these people are willing to sacrifice their lives to help the Doctor, and it's interesting to see how far back that goes. It's just a pattern that's been going on.
And speaking like piggybacking on that, because I love to piggyback.
You can't stop.
In the sense that the Doctor's kind of dark when when he controls the Cybermat and infects Proto Turlo, and then he pretty much is like, you either die or you tell us what we need to know. Like it was a weird moment, and he's pretty cold. I mean, he's basically threatens the guy's life unless he says
that was in episode 2. I was totally I wrote down the same thing. That was the fact that he was just threatening to torture him just to let him suffer until he gave him information. That was that seemed a little out of character for him. But
speaking of whether it's out of character, literally like an actor who is terribly sick and dying, or if the character was supposed to be terribly sick and dying. But one of the gold dust people is coughing most of the time. It's like this old guy. It's constantly. Was that part of the story? Was he sick? Why? There was like a weird element that they had where it was like this old guy just constantly coughing. I'm like, he's got COVID. That poor guy.
Poor guy. Yeah, that came so early before we kind of really knew what was going on. I just thought that was part of the plague that was going on, and they had it too. But you're right.
Yeah, but
that actually had no.
There is no plague.
There is no plague, and it had no bearing on anything else.
He was just sick.
An old guy.
Yeah, he was just sick, and the union wouldn't let him take a day off.
It was cold and flu season on Vogon.
Right.
It happens.
Well, it gets very dry with all that gold dust.
That's right. You should really keep that humidity up.
So one other thing I wanted to talk about was the glitter gun, right? So they talk about the glitter gun being invented, and I think the humans invented it.
Gold glitter gun. Yeah. Which, I mean, happy Pride Month, everybody. That's just fantastic.
All lined up.
Makes me very happy.
Totally perfect. First off, yes, I have to get a glitter gun. But the second thing, it goes back to what I was complaining about before. Why don't the gold people have a freaking glitter gun?
It worked
They have the one thing that the Cybermen fear most.
Yes,
and
in abundance.
The Cybermen walk all over him, which is another reason, like, their whole elaborate plan, they could have just landed on this asteroid, killed everyone, and then sent their cybermats in to plant the bombs if they wanted to blow. Like
that could
they
have
didn't
worked.
really need the humans. Like they say like we need humans to carry the bombs because when at that point in the story you're like, oh, there's gold everywhere. It's poison. It's tar. They can't go
But
on
it's
this.
not even
they can't
that.
land on this thing, but they
Right.
do land on it and wage a war and win it handily. Like there's no
issues.
There's no issues for them at all. So that was a little strange.
That would have been much better. So when you go back and rewrite this and you have your own version of the novelization, don't let them land on the planet because that's toxic.
Yeah, like
the gold dust in the air, sure,
right,
could have
but
killed
for
them.
some
That's
reason
what-
they land on it, and it's
They're
fine.
fine. They're totally fine. They use their head guns, which
Yeah,
I thought.
sprinkle
Have we
some
seen
gold
that
on it.
before? By the way,
What's
the
that?
Cybermen have head guns.
Not that I remember, but it's
I don't
certainly
remember that either.
possible we did.
I mean,
Like because
sure,
we
don't-
did.
We don't watch things closely,
We haven't done that many Cybermen
Cybermens.
stories. Like I know we did the one with
We've done
Patrick
Tomb of the
Troughton,
Cybermen.
Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yeah,
We did. Let me look it up because I can't even remember.
it's honestly not
Our
important at
website's
all.
down, so I can't look at it.
Is it?
Yeah, so that was good. I mean, Sarah Jane on a mini speedboat. I love Sarah Jane. I loved her outfit too. Like everything about her is great. She's just the best. I don't have anything else to say about Sarah Jane. But Harry, what do you like aside from the Doctor hating Harry? Aside from whatever weird thing that they got going on, and there's always one character that's always like the problem. Do you like Harry as a companion?
I don't have any issue with him. He seems. I mean, he's definitely at this point.
He's a doctor too, which I had forgotten about.
Yes, he's a Navy doctor.
They don't.
He saw.
play out
I mean,
too
he
well.
came right in right after the regeneration from 3 to 4. I had to go back and I didn't remember much of this guy at all. No, he's kind of doing the audience surrogate role where he's asking the obvious questions and doesn't quite get it. There was one point where he couldn't. He's like talking about what's going on, kind of restating the obvious, and he says something about the Vogons, and then he's like, and then this other race. What are they called again? Cybermen. Right, Cybermen. He can remember Vogons, but can't remember Cybermen.
I
which
kind
thought
of
was
like that part though,
okay.
because he
Right
sort of
guy.
catches you up, but then it's also like a lot of it is it's not taken all that seriously. You realize it's kind of silly.
I mean, but Sarah is just mean to him from the very beginning, and I thought when it first happened, I was like, oh, I must have just missed something. There must have been something that was going on. But they keep doing it, and then the doctor gets in on the act, and they're just plain mean to him. When Harry's trying to break the shackle that's on Sarah Jane, she's just, I mean, they're both kind of brats at each other.
Yeah, a little bit.
For some reason. Whatever. It's
He
fine.
actually
It's
has
nowhere
pretty
near-
good ideas, and then
Yeah.
he's the one that comes up with the fact that we can use the rocks to break it. But yeah, she's not having any of it. And I'm trying to remember back to those other episodes, and I feel like it's always been that way. They're also he's sort of
I mean,
this stuffy Navy doctor. I'm not even sure how. I don't remember how he got stuck with them, but I think it was by accident.
Yeah, right.
And
he got called in for unit, and then I think
right. And then they landed on
accidentally.
the Ark in space. They had to do
Right.
whatever. Then they lost the TARDIS, so that's why he's sort of been with them. And the idea, I think, is they will get the TARDIS, and then they will
get him home.
But although it ends with a new mission, right? They get
They have to go to Earth.
They got to go to Earth because they.
So maybe he can get him.
But maybe he can get off. The Cybermen. I didn't realize they had those little teardrop tattoos for everyone they've killed. Do you notice that they have a little? I guess that's always been in the design, but I never really noticed it till now.
There's a whole scene where you can see them getting those tattoos. Where they say their victims' names. They have to say their names when they do it.
Back to pause, Dan. We'd only done Tomb of the Cybermen and Attack of the Cybermen, and Attack of the Cybermen is a Colin Baker story. So we really haven't done any. This is only our third Cybermen story and the second Cybermen story in a linear timeline. So we don't know a lot about their makeup, their history.
We don't plan to learn.
Go on, Dan. Go on.
I want to talk about Proto Turlo.
Yep.
So the doctor goes into his quarters, suspects that he must be the guy that's knows what's going on here. This is before he threatens him with torture. Goes into his quarters in order to get some information. He sees the hairbrush, figures out that that it's a compartment, and immediately looks in the bottom drawer marked "Do not look," private.
Finds it.
Finds all the stuff.
Hides under the bed.
Proto Turlo is coming back, so he hides under the bed. And then I love this. Proto Turlo decides to take like car battery jumper cables and stick it to the metal floor.
Yes.
So that everything's electrocuted.
Yep.
Which is freaking amazing.
I
So
love it.
the
He's
doctor
like a
totally
MacGyver.
has to play the floor is lava in
Yep.
order to get from countertop to countertop, jumps onto the cabinet door, swings around to the other side
Great.
like some Nickelodeon kids game show. It was great. I really enjoyed that. Later, the commander and his second in command come to get the guy because they realize, he knows he's a double agent, kind of whatever. Coming in, and they say, looks like he left in a hurry, not commenting on the fact that there's like scorch marks all over everything in the room.
It's a hot mess in there, but
It
they're
had been
not
filled
the
with
brightest.
the acrid smoke, but like, I guess he had to go quickly. That's how I leave a hotel room. So that was fun.
That part was great.
This guy's he was an interesting character. The fact that he was his loyalties become revealed as you're watching this. At first, it looks like he is helping the Cybermen, but really he's double.
Yeah, he's
he's like a
double-crossing
triple agent.
He is.
To the people running the beacon, he's just a like exogeologist kind of whatever, working there. But really, then he's working for the Cybermen. But no, really, he's working for the Vogons in order to screw them over and da-da-da-da.
But he's really the worst person because you have to assume he's working with the Cybermen.
Whoever would have paid him.
But he had to deal with them that there would only be 4 people remaining, right? 3 to carry the bomb and him to get his reward.
This plan.
So they killed the entire crew, and he watched the entire crew
Yes.
get killed. So he's pretty much a murderer.
He's not a great guy.
He's not a good guy, which is good. But then they pretty much, I guess there is no like worrying about him dying. Like it's like literally Harry just pushes his eyes down.
And that was fine. You're right. Yeah. He can go, and no one can really shed a tear over him. They'll still put a tear tattoo.
Yep. Of course. That's why the next episode Harry has one. And
Harry has
one. Like why, and he can't talk about it.
And Harry's taking credit for the death, but he didn't really kill him. Just let him go. Yeah. So right, and that's around the same time that Harry's going to take off the suicide vest that's on the doctor, and that's why the doctor calls.
Vest. And I loved that. I loved that.
Yes,
I like this. Really like the story element because that's like a cool thing, and you can't take the thing off, or it's going to go off. And the Cybermen are like, I think their plan was pretty good to say you're going to live if you do this. So at least they
and everyone knows they're not.
Yeah, they know they're not, but at least they would sort of force you to do this thing thinking that you're going to get something out of it.
Super elaborate plan.
I thought that was cool.
It really should have just been a whole team of Cybermats carrying the bomb down, but that's fine. But so the doctor gets knocked on the head with the cave in. He's laying there unconscious. Harry comes, is going to take off the vest to help him like do CPR or whatever he's going to do. Take that off of him. The doctor wakes up. He's like, "Don't take it off. Were you going to take this off?" Yeah. Then he says that Harry Sullivan is an imbecile.
Yeah.
How is Harry supposed to know?
He never would have known. He was trying to help him.
That was just mean for
no
reason.
Mean for no reason, but it was very funny.
It didn't say like clearly on the handle.
Yeah.
Do not remove or no nothing.
Yeah. Remove in case of depression. It did not say that.
Bad guy.
But sticking with that thing. So the Cybermen strap them with the suicide vest.
Yep.
And say, we're going to watch where you go.
Yes.
So you got to go to this thing, to the center of the thing, and plant these devices, and then we're going to let you go. And while they're going, at one point, there's the 3 of them, and the doctor says to the commander, I think, you keep going. Right. So they think we're still going, and
because
me and the other guy are going to go the other way.
Yep.
But they would be tracking them. Now, in the story, the Cybermen are like, we've lost contact with them, so they can't see the dots on the screen. But the doctor wouldn't really know that.
He said that, though. He does, before he says that, he says, I think that blah, 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 because we're in the
right.
goal.
So if they
blah,
can't
blah.
track where the things are going, what difference does it make if the guy goes to the center?
Yeah.
How are they tracking it and not tracking? Because they know to the minute how far they are. The Cybermen are like, they're 8 minutes away from...
The Cybermen say that at that point, they can't discriminate individual dots, but they can see where they are. So maybe with one guy moving in one direction, the other one's like the little blue circle on your map that shows where the person is. Just the ring gets big.
It's fine. It's not a big deal. I just like at that point, just all 3 of you guys stick
together.
I
can't believe you're picking holes in this story.
No, it's great. It was a lot of fun.
Doesn't
really
make any sense.
did like it. I thought it was good.
Sarah Jane's sneaking back onto the beacon and kind of doing this whole stealth sequence, trying to listen in on what's going on, and she knows that the rocket's going to be sent up to try to blow up the cyber ship, and they even say at some point if she blabs to them or something to that effect that it's going to ruin everything, and she blabs to them, but it doesn't ruin everything. The cyber leader and cyber squad catch the Doctor when he comes back to the beacon to try to save Sarah, and they just decide to tie them up again and let the beacon crash into the planet. It had a very Austin Powers, like sharks with laser beams moment. Like, just kill them. It's fine.
I know, but
because there's some, like, they're not supposed to be these emotional things where it's like, yeah, we're gonna make you suffer and watch the impending doom, and you're gonna have this, 5 minutes of terror before you actually die. They don't care. Just kill him.
An evil genius. He's like, it's the most wonderful explosion in the world, and you'll have front row seats.
It's so unnecessary.
I was fine with that, though. I mean, that's the kind of like hokey adventure kid serial stuff,
right? But it's the same thing as like any sitcom where if two characters had just been honest with each other for like 5 seconds, the whole plot's gone. It's the same sort of thing.
But it's like hard to differentiate the Cybermen from the Daleks in the sense of like, are they both? Because the Daleks would just execute you, right? I mean, that's always the way I read them. So maybe the Cybermen have more of a personality and more of. It's literally a revenge story, so it's revenge of the Cybermen. So maybe they do.
But it wasn't revenge on the Doctor. It was revenge on everyone who stopped them in their last attempt to take over the. It doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
Fine. I just needed to make a note that the Cyberman ship looked like a dildo. What else we got? Oh, so the rocket.
Oh, the rocket thing. So the ending off is okay. Go on.
It's. So the Vogons have this plan where they have a rocket that they've been preparing. It has a warhead that they've never been able to test, so they have to get onto it. And the test will be, let's just see if it works. And they finally, it just takes forever, over a couple episodes for them to get it ready. And like, we're going to run out of time. And finally it takes off. And it's stock footage of the Saturn V NASA rocket launching, which apparently has been used throughout Doctor Who many, many times. It was just so ridiculous we
didn't really need to see that. That
it could have been a miniature.
Took you out of it.
It really did. They had so many miniatures throughout this. They could have just done one more, you would think, especially considering the amount of money they saved on reusing a set from the previous, literally the previous story in production. They just kept the same set from
right. The ending I felt got very sort of hokey. So the whole plan is the Proto Turlo works with the Cybermen. He's going to sort of lure them into the beacon. Then, meanwhile, he's working with Gold Dust Woman and his crew. And they are building a rocket, so once all the Cybermen are on the beacon, they're going to destroy the Cybermen, freeing them of the only thing that can kill them, I guess. I mean, lots of people can kill them, especially if a planet of gold. They seem like a big target, Cybermen aside. But this is going to sort of free them, and they're going to be allowed to trade with people and show their face and all that crap, right? So by the end, things go wrong because the rocket's not ready and the Cybermen are there too early, and all of their planning, they didn't figure out to have the rocket ready. So whatever. So the leader of the Gold Dust Woman Brigade, he dies, and now nobody on the planet knows how to drive the rocket.
Right.
Somehow the doctor knows, like, the one on the left is going to do this.
It must be the one on the left.
The one on the right. And then the commander grabs it, and he's not only able to turn it away from the arc, but hit the space dildo, right? It's like, so he does, he's like very good. Like, it's a
very
moving
good
thing, and I just felt like at that part, I just felt was dumb. Like, why not just have someone on the planet? Maybe I trained once with him. I'm not sure I can do like something.
Right.
It could have came from them instead of the doctor.
You still have tension of it.
The doctor knows where the controls are and what. That was like sloppy. Okay, that's a little much. And then it goes from like one extreme to another. Like it's like there's this moment, and now the doctor has to do essentially the same thing with the crashing.
Right.
Thing. Although I did like the moment when Harry was like, Hi, yeah, sorry to bother you, but are you guys aware that you're still, like, heading towards us? And Sarah Jane's like, yeah, you idiot. The doctor's just pulling a lever out of the wall that says, like, override
emergency brake. The effect where the beacon is heading towards the planet and it's getting closer and closer. Two things. You see the video screen where you see the beacon coming at the planet from their point of view, and it's zooming in, but the star field behind it's also zooming in. So it's just it was so horrible effect. It would look really, really bad. But anyway, there's that. But then as the from the doctor's point of view, when they're on the bridge of the beacon and it's coming at the planet, the miniature they use of the planet spinning is basically just like a log. You can see the way it just looks so bad. Yeah. It was really, really horrible. They just put a whole bunch of like paper mache on a basketball and just spun it, and that was the planet coming at them real fast.
I don't know if they re-released this. I don't know if they re-released this story on DVD and enhanced the effects or anything. But like watching this, you're like, clearly we're watching the one that went out in the 70s because there's no question. There's
so many, like the highs and lows of the effects. Like, it looks horrible, and I love it. So, I mean,
effects aside, I thought the settings or the set decorations were really good on the planet. Like the caves were really interesting. All that exterior stuff,
very elaborate. Yep.
And the way that they had like the weird symbols carved into the walls of the gold dust people.
Funny note.
All of that stuff was cool. Looked like Aleister Crowley, black magic stuff going on.
Keep going with that. It actually, from what the tiny amount of reading I did, that prop that was used for the symbol ends up being the seal of Rassilon later.
Oh, look at
that. They
just
reuse it. So that's kind of fun. But like, they didn't want to put all that work to waste, and that's
cool.
how you do it.
I would like to see it. Yeah, I don't know if these people, what are they called? What are the race called? I can't keep calling them gold dust women. The Vogons.
I like Vogons.
I hope that are they in other stories? Do you know?
Gold dust woman. I don't want to know.
Okay,
I don't know.
Enough.
I mean, but
maybe we'll see them again. Maybe we won't.
Who knows?
Well, I think
I can't tell you.
I think we covered everything. Dan, do you have anything else on this, or should we get to what the people said?
Wait, I'm just looking to see real quick. Pros for TV, for instance. No, nope. It looks like they're just in some stories, some prose stories. No more TV episodes. We're the Vogons. No, I think that's it. Everything. Super fun show. Loved it.
Very good.
Don't know why they hate it.
Very entertaining. I found it to be, not the best. I mean, it's following what is probably one of the best classic Who stories. My phone's going off. Genesis of the Daleks. So it's like it's hard to top that anyway. So I feel like expectations are so high going into this. I can see why people are like, for the last, story of Baker's first season, maybe it's not great. We don't know a lot of Cybermen stories.
Right.
So as far as Cybermen story goes, maybe it's a weaker one. I don't know. We've only done 3, and to me, it was totally fine. It wasn't the greatest, but I was entertained from
fun.
Start
It was
to finish.
I mean, anytime you get to spend with Tom Baker at the height of what he's doing with the Doctor, because this just felt like such a good Tom Baker story with Sarah Jane.
Always great.
It's gonna be fun.
He's always funny. He's just very funny, and I love his sense of humor, and he has that smile that sort of disarms everything, even if he says something kind of mean. You get that.
What do you think
pocket
about
gags?
Such a Doctor thing. This Doctor, when he's being taken with the bomb strapped to him by our Cybermen down to Vogon, he goes to the transmat, and he's just yo-yoing the entire time. Does that strike you? I mean, it is such a quintessential Fourth Doctor thing to do. It was almost, and I realized this is us looking at it years and years and years after the fact, but it felt like almost a caricature of something the Fourth Doctor would do. But I guess that's where it's coming from. It's just him being nonchalant and just being silly. Anyway, just love that guy. 2 pieces. I have nothing else to bring up.
Nothing else. I know people thought differently than we did. I can start reading some feedback unless you have something else. All right, this comes from Christops P., who writes over our Instagram, which is TODW show.
Oh.
Revenge of the Cybermen, not that good. This was Baker's first season and included the brilliant arc in space, along with the return of the Centaurans and Daleks. This was supposed to be the OMG, the Cybermen are back finale, but it just doesn't do it. And then there's that weird Cybermen strangle the Doctor, and he goes, and he goes all floppy scene. We mentioned that. So at the end, the Cybermen grab the shoulders of the Doctor
gives him a violent
and starts
massage?
violently massaging him. What
Violent
was
massage.
that?
I don't
That
know.
was
I forgot
weird.
about that.
And
Yes.
that's what he's referencing. And yes,
weird.
but even like the Doctor when he's looking up, it's such a ridiculous moment, and I don't know how it ended up in the show. It's just so weird. It's a very weird thing.
strange.
But yes, I'm thank you for bringing that up because that's worth mentioning. All right. Well, it sounds like Kristaps is not a fan, and it makes sense. Again, there's a lot of stellar stories in Baker's first season, so I could see it being a disappointment. I still found it to be entertaining.
It was super fun. I mean, we just told you why we think that. Yeah. But that seems to be kind of an outlier because the other feedback we got about this story was pretty much all positive.
Good.
Just a little bit of feedback here. Misfit Scully says on Twitter, that's at TODW Show, Revenge has one of my favorite lines in all of Doctor Who. Harry Sullivan is an imbecile.
Yes.
That's that, which is great. They go on to say, it was the first story to be released on video with a cover that has an Earth Shock Cyberman, the wrong logo, and a picture of Tom Baker not from Revenge. It's still great and remembers queuing to buy it. And then Hair the Hound replies to that with the two different video covers. The original one that Mr. Scully is referencing with all the weird things included in it, and then a later one, I guess revised version of that, which is kind of fun. Paul Paranoid says, this story has a special place in my heart. As a kid, I could only satisfy my love of the show reading the novelizations and slightly psychedelic Doctor Who annuals. This story captures that birthday cake spirit somehow. It's not great, but it's fun and with memorable set pieces. That sounds almost exactly how you feel, Eric, that it was a solid story, not one of the best ever, but absolutely solid.
Totally, I would watch it again. I did watch it again. Again, this is something I half remember.
Apparently you did.
I liked it.
Let's see. From our Gmail, that's the old Doctor Who show at gmail.com. Conrad wrote to us, Eric and Dan, Revenge of the Cybermen doesn't get much love from Who fandom, but while it is a bit shonky, I like that term, shonky.
Right. And I will point out, just because you reference him as Hair of the Hound on Twitter, this is same person.
Conrad here. I have a soft spot for it mainly because this is the first season of Who I watched at age 4. The Cybermen attacking Sarah Jane absolutely terrified me, and I still love the Cybermen headguns.
Yeah, headguns, you mentioned that.
It must be the first time. It was really interesting. Anyway, there's hardly any Who merchandise back in the day, so I absolutely treasured pictures of the Cybermen that came as free cards in boxes of Taifu tea, and the stand-up figure cards that came with Weetabix cereal. There's screenshots attached.
This is great because I don't know
we'll
what
put these on the show
those
page.
Things are.
I know what Weetabix is, but I didn't know
don't.
about the Taifu tea. These are great.
That's cool.
Those are awesome. We'll put those on the show page.
I would love to get Doctor Who trading cards from the 70s. Is that a thing I can find?
I bet there's something. You can find.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Keep
Thank
going.
you for sending those photos.
It was one of the very first Doctor Who stories to come out on VHS in '83. So many of us rewatched it endlessly and know every line. I still love the fact that gold is fatal to Cybermen. It seems very British to have a race of evil super robots that are susceptible to a bad allergy.
Right, and that's the thing.
Golden.
And they do explain it
That's
at
great.
one point that the doctor's like, gold is pure and it messes with the respiratory system.
Right.
But then
it doesn't corrode. It doesn't corrode, and it messes with their respiratory system.
How and why?
I would like them to spend a full 22 minutes in a story just explaining the physiology.
You are so good at technology, you can build yourself.
just
we
need
build
a HEPA
ourselves.
filter, honestly.
Yeah, build a
Wear a
HEPA
mask,
filter.
people. Yeah. All I'm saying is wear masks.
This is what happens when you don't wear a mask.
You gotta wear a mask.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you for that one as well. I think that was the only other feedback.
What about on? You went through all of Twitter.
That was it. There wasn't much, but thank you guys for responding to it. For those that did, I think we may have not read this from last time.
Oh, yeah, it's possible we did miss one.
I am vamping here.
Kind of remember that, and I will
edit this one down.
Yep, you will figure it all out.
Come
you
on.
will figure it all out.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. Figure it out. Oh, yeah. So anyway, while Dan's doing that, if you want to write to us, there's always the old Doctor Who show at gmail.com. If you want to send us Doctor Who cards from the 70s, you can send those to P.O. Box 2131, Red Bank, New Jersey, 07701. That is our real post office box. We are on Twitter at TODW Show. I think before, Instagram, TODW Show. We are not on Facebook. So if you are contacting us over Facebook, and it still happens occasionally, I'll see someone's contacting us over Facebook. Neither of us use it.
We don't.
And honestly, I'd recommend you not use it. I realize I sound like an idiot because I'm also saying we're using Instagram and it's the same company, but
it's just different.
It's baby steps, right? We're all
wean ourselves off that.
We're slowly getting off of that. And Dan, it sounds like you have what we need.
Yep. So going back to Curse of Peladon, the last story that we did get some feedback after we recorded the show, and I just want to make sure we mention that as well. Again, from Chris Paddock. Thank you, superfan. I understand you guys not being in anything approaching the headspace to review the serial, but it's unfortunate because Curse of the Peladon is one of my favorites in all of Doctor Who. The familiar format of a murder mystery played to the actor's strengths, and this story feels very solid at a time when adventures in space could get a little loose and haphazard. Of course, no one likes the squeaky, one-eyed trouser snake that is Alpha Centauri, but I would count this among the serials I would use to introduce someone to Doctor Who.
I liked Curse of Peladon, and I remember we both did.
Would you use the third Doctor as someone who hasn't seen any classic Doctor Who? Would this be one of the ones you would use? Would any third Doctor be ones? I have a feeling you would probably introduce them via Tom Baker.
But I feel like that is 100% rooted in my own bias. But I feel like Pertwee for a lot of people is their Doctor.
True.
And everything else is sort of great, but maybe not as good. And I think that's true for everybody. I feel
you think there's a lot of people out there that are like, no, Colin Baker is my Doctor.
Well, I was going to argue this.
I mean, I guess there are, but
yeah, there actually are. I think I talked to someone once. But I feel like, and this is just a generalization,
yes,
and maybe it's just because of the way it played in the West, but I feel like in the States, it's easier to make a connection to Tom Baker, and I think it's maybe through his humor or whatever, than it is John Pertwee. Because I feel like if you look at John Pertwee, sometimes there's a lot of the judo chops and the 007, and some of that stuff feels a little bit dated. Where if you show someone, they're like, what is it? Where if you show someone Tom Baker, there's always something you can laugh at. That's not a dig on Pertwee. I just feel like it's an easier sell for people in the States. Anyway,
I would agree, but it's also more indicative of the show as a whole to show something that's not Pertwee, because so much of his time was spent on Earth with UNIT, which was a very different tone than had been set in the previous two Doctors, and then any Doctors following that, where Tom Baker has stories that are all over the place and has that range. I think Pertwee has the range too. Most of the Doctors do, where he's able to turn on a dime between being deadly serious, calculating and cold, and lighthearted and fun, without ever being mean in the way that some of the other Doctors can be. Going all the way back to Hartnell, where he's kind of this irascible old man who does eventually, you see kind of where his hearts are.
Yeah.
But that's
there is one. I would say,
I might even start with. Go ahead.
I would say Spearhead from Space, which is a Pertwee story.
Yes.
I think would be a pretty good, a really good introduction to Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who. Just because, from what I remember, that's the one where he like rolls out of the TARDIS, regenerating, and you do sort of. You meet UNIT people. There's a lot of stuff that explains what he is and why he is.
Right.
So that may be a good one.
That's very true with most of the regeneration stories as a good entry point, because then you do get filled in with some backstory of what's going on. Right. And you usually have a companion there who's never met the Doctor before, so you get that surrogate for you. I might even say like McCoy is a great entry point to classic Doctor Who.
Yeah. I think what we're saying is you just show anything, whatever you feel like showing them. The more people that watch classic Doctor Who, the better we are as a people.
Yeah. Can't argue with that. That's science.
We can't argue with that.
I think that's it, Eric. We covered everything.
We covered it all. And we don't have any reviews, so that's a sad moment for us. But if you have not reviewed our show on iTunes or Spotify,
Stitcher,
I don't know if Spotify has reviews, or Stitcher.
Favorite. I think you have to favorite it.
Or Google Play, whatever. Sure. We're all over the place. Leave us a review. And it's okay, out of nowhere, to just send a tweet out and say, oh, I like this podcast. Maybe you will too. And that's it.
Yeah, we won't be mad at you for doing that.
No, that's totally fine. But yeah, reviews are good because we get to read whatever you write on air. And it gives us something to talk about.
Yay!
Yay
coming
for
up
us.
Next, we have 4 to Doomsday.
Which is supposedly not a good one.
Great. Well, we got Adric, Tegan, and Issa, so this is going to be fun.
Adric? Really?
Remember him?
Yeah. He's in that one?
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, so that's 4 to Doomsday, which I believe is a very early Davison one, right? I think it's within his first season, so it'll be interesting.
It's a 4-parter, Eric.
Yep.
It's going to be great.
Cool.
So then until next time.
Yeah, that's on July 15th. So you have until now and July 15th to watch it.
So thanks, everybody.
Okay. All right, thanks, everyone.
We did it.
Peace. We did it. We're awesome.
Wear a mask.
Yeah. What he said. All right, we're good. Let's go to that Trump rally.
She make you cry, make you break down, shatter your illusions of love.